President Biden is calling on Congress to suspend the federal gas tax for 3 months. That would save drivers 18 cents a gallon on gasoline.
The officers had weapons. The children had none. The officers had body armor. The children had none. The officers had training. The subject had none.
We need more money to plan for the second pandemic. There's going to be another pandemic.
President Biden saying there's going to be a second pandemic. Lots of down news today. More stuff coming out of the Uvalde Police Department. Turns out they lied to everybody, so that's not good. DA Gascon in LA backed releasing a would-be or future cop killer. Kind of a downer day today. Regardless, all that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live, and it starts right now.
2, 1.
Here we go!
That might be the only brown guy in her named Jobob.
That is actually her name, Jobob.
Live from TPUSA headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm using Charlie Kirk's old studio. Alex Clark also uses the studio. John Rood, a bunch of other people use the studio. They're nice enough to let me use the studio because we're here today shooting some other stuff. But to do Daily Caller Live on today, it is June 22nd, the year of our Lord, 2022. How you doing? New you in 22? Is that working out well for you so far? A lot of stuff to talk about, but I want to get to this first. This is more serious fare than we probably are used to doing here on this show. We tend to make light of the news of the day, but this is a big story. And we'll get into the gas tax thing, the LADA, the second pandemic. But it turns out there's a lot of stuff that the Uvalde Police Department and the Uvalde politicians were covering up. Some new information revealed early yesterday, but right after we got off of doing this show, shows some pretty awful photos and some pretty awful testimony. Oh, wow, that's cool. They put the background up. That's nice. Listen to this. This is Steve McCraw, the director of Texas Department of Public Safety, who spoke to state officials during a Texas Senate committee hearing on Tuesday. This is what he had to say. All of this is important. So we'll listen to this. We'll discuss on the other side.
There's compelling evidence that the law enforcement response to the attack at Robb Elementary was an abject failure and antithetical to everything we've learned over the last 2 decades since the Columbine massacre. 3 minutes after the subject entered the West Building, there was a sufficient number of armed officers wearing body armor to isolate, distract, and neutralize the subject. The only thing stopping a hallway of dedicated officers from entering room 111 and 112 was the on-scene commander, who decided to place the lives of officers before the lives of children. The officers had weapons. The children had none. The officers had body armor. The children had none. The officers had training. The subject had none. 1 hour, 14 minutes, and 8 seconds. That's how long the children waited and the teachers waited in rooms 111 to be rescued. And while they waited, the on-scene commander waited for a radio and rifles. Then he waited for shields. Then he waited for SWAT. Lastly, he waited for a key that was never needed. The post-Columbine doctrine is clear and compelling and unambiguous. Stop the killing, stop the dying. You can't do the former unless you can't do the latter unless you do the former.
So that was, what was his role again? I believe the state director of Texas Public Safety Department. And as you can see in this photo here, let me make this photo bigger for just a quick second so you can see. I'll take myself out of it. They're police officers that look like have a ballistic shield and heavily armed within the hallway of the school very early on. McCraw said that within 3 minutes of the attack, there were at least 9 officers in the hallway, at least 2 arms with rifles and a body shield. They also had bulletproof vests. You heard him remark on the officers had weapons, the children did not. The officers had body armors, the children had none. The officers had training, the subject had none. He added that law enforcement were on the scene, searched for a master key for the classroom, but never actually tried to open the door. That is until officers ultimately confronted the shooter more than an hour after the attack had began. McCraw said the Uvalde District Attorney's Office gives permission. When the Uvalde District Attorney's Office gives permission, the Texas State Department of Public Safety will release all of the police body camera footage, as well as the school and funeral home surveillance footage. So that's going to be an interesting thing to discuss when, in fact, it does all come out. They're going to release the body cam footage. They're going to release all of the surveillance footage from the school as soon as the the Uvalde District Attorney gives them permission to do so. Here's the thing. We can have the conversation of what the expectation is for our police officers. We can have that conversation. Nobody's shying away for what should officers be expected to do. What we can't have is the police and the government lying to us about it. Pretty much everything that the Uvalde police and the Uvalde politicians and the Uvalde City Council, pretty much everything that they had reported as it was happening turned out to be false. And realistically, you can make the claim that, well, maybe they didn't know. I'm not buying that for a second. I think it was a cover-up to cover their own butts. And I feel like the fact that a lot of people on the right are now pointing this out speaks to the fact that, well, while support the police and law enforcement to the fullest extent, at the same time, we want them to be held accountable just like any other facet of government. It's unclear when the information is going to be released, when that body cam footage is going to be released. The police, however, were recently trained. We knew this from the beginning, but the police were recently trained at great taxpayer expense and did not do what they were trained to do. There was an interesting thought brought up that I was listening to a podcast the other day of potentially overtraining. And again, I'm not a police officer. I don't pretend to know what the training is like, but somebody brought up the fact that maybe if police officers are being trained so much on this sort of stuff, they tend to overthink and only go by protocol. What looked like it happened and what McCraw, the Texas Department of Public Safety director, was saying was that it seemed that there were officers that wanted to go in, but from the top down, they were being told not to and wait for SWAT. Again, if you're just joining us, this is the Texas Department of Public Safety director saying that officers were in the hallway within 3 minutes of the shooting, which is a phenomenal response time. At least I think, not knowing so much about response times. But officers were on the scene within 3 minutes. What we were told at the beginning was they were waiting outside. They didn't really know what was going on. No, they were in the hallway within 3 minutes. They decided not to go in. The story was put out that they were looking for a key. They couldn't get into the locked door. Turns out the door was unlocked entirely. And then waited, I think, an hour and 17 minutes before going inside. They didn't enter the classroom for another 58 minutes. So sorry, an hour and 1 minute. Over an hour after the shooting had started. Dang, this is rough, man. I'm not a big fan of what looks like the police officers did regarding covering their own butts by not going into the school. Again, we can have the conversation of what the expectation for law enforcement needs to be, but what we can't, or we can all agree on, and what we can't have is lying to us. We can't deal with the cover-up that apparently was taking place with the Uvalde shooting. Geez, do we want to go with another downer? I mean, well, let's go with this. Moving on to this, the federal gas tax holiday. There's a couple people in the comment section that were talking about this early on, and I specifically left in a longer portion of this at the beginning of the episode in the intro section, talking about, well, the federal government gas tax is about 18 cents per gallon. I'm going to let this lady from a local news station explain this, and then we'll discuss on the other side. Check this out.
President Biden is calling on Congress to suspend the federal gas tax for 3 months. That would save drivers 18 cents a gallon on gasoline. For diesel, it would save drivers 24 cents a gallon. The tax is used to pay for transportation and highway projects. The president wants Congress to provide the gas tax relief and still fund those projects. He also wants states to follow his lead and provide more relief. Critics have said this will only worsen inflation.
So that's what it is. The president has officially, I believe, called for Congress to institute a gas tax holiday at the federal level. Now, a lot of you are saying in the comment section here, I think at the very, very beginning of this, let me see if I can go. Jerry, at the very beginning of the episode, commented, big deal, 18 cents. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. If your gas tank costs $80 to fill up, thanks for the $3 in extra savings, or $2. But the big thing that I think the Biden administration is doing, well, there's another clip that I want to play from the White House press secretary that they are doing in regards to the gas tax or the potential gas tax holiday. But what they're doing is pushing states to also follow their gas tax holiday idea. Now, I think this is really interesting, especially as somebody who lives in California. We're in Phoenix right now, but I live in California, and the gas taxes are among the highest in the country. I think they're pushing $1 in California in overall taxes at the pump. Governor Gavin Newsom, who is the lunkhead dictator of California, has been bragging for a long time, especially during his recall campaign or election, that California has a budget surplus. Now, the budget surplus was not at all due to any sort of responsible spending, and in fact was due to the federal government giving them COVID money. But that didn't stop Gavin Newsom from bragging about, look at how great we are. We have a budget surplus. So I and a bunch of other of my friends who live in Southern California would like to ask, well, since we have such a budget surplus, do you think you could maybe lay it off on the gas tax, which I think would make gas go down significantly in California? 18 cents is meh. A lot of people in the comment section are saying, yeah, 18 cents, who cares? But if it's $1, yeah, that makes a big freaking difference. Gas prices are at about $5 per gallon nationwide. In California, if you find a $5 gas station, there would be a line 7 miles long because that is a rare find. So while the Biden administration is saying, oh, gas tax holiday for the federal gas tax, they're also encouraging states to follow a similar approach, which I don't know, Gavin, what do you think? Should you relax on the state's highest gas tax? Now, I want to get to this clip from Karine Jean-Pierre in the White House press briefing room, where she talks about how the Biden administration is planning on doing this. And I thought this was kind of interesting, especially when you look at all of the other things the admin has done not in this way. Watch this.
The way we see it is there would be congressional action. Congress would need to take action. To your first question, the president's looking at an array of options to figure out how he's going to help give relief to the American public, especially as they are looking at gas prices at the pump. This is a number one priority for the president. He's looking at an array of options. We don't have anything specific for you to share with you at this time.
Okay, so that was the White House press secretary talking about, we do need to go through Congress. That, I think, is an interesting distinction between what the administration has done in the past, i.e. going against constitutional norms to pass things such as the CDC's ban on evictions, which is a thing in and of itself. But now they think, oh, yeah, we got to go through Congress. Now, that's the way it should be done. I'm not saying that they should circumvent Congress again. It's just interesting because he thinks this is so important, yet wants to go through Congress. Again, that's the way it's supposed to work, but they haven't been doing that for so many other things. The border is one specifically, and off the top of my head, the border and the CDC's moratorium on evictions. Those were both very unconstitutional. They admitted it was unconstitutional, but they did it anyway, only for the Supreme Court or the lower courts to knock it down, which, again, all they're doing is setting a precedent. So why is this different? Since this is so important, Why are they going to go through Congress now? Again, that's the right way to do it, but that's not how they've been doing it time and time again. Billy says, F gas, groceries are 5 times higher. Yeah, but also so is gas. Becky, this is funny, but also sad. I would like to give a shout out to my 401k, RIP. Funny joke, but not also not funny at the same time. I want to get this on too. Scott says, open up the Keystone Pipeline. So just so we all know, and I think a lot of us are aware, the Keystone Pipeline is not actually finished yet. The Biden administration canceled the permits to continue building it. It would have been finished fairly soon, which would have opened up a bunch of other stuff, and also put predictions in the market or allowed investors in oil and any other energy to know that it was coming and therefore maybe adjust their prices accordingly. But the Keystone Pipeline is not actually finished yet, so just so we all know and we're not spouting off stuff that isn't happening. Let's see. I want to get to this. This is another California-specific story. Not another one, but a California-specific story, but I feel like it has a lot of, what's the right word? It's a good indication of where things are going around the country. If you're not familiar with the urban district attorneys who have been winning races around the country funded by one George Soros, that's happening. You've got super, super lefty district attorneys. Now, district attorneys, I think they're called state attorneys in some places. They're the chief prosecutor of any particular county or jurisdiction. George Soros, who is known for funding hyper-left political liberal Democrats for the most part, decided that he didn't necessarily need to fund governor's races and congressional races and Senate races, although they're still doing that. They also found out that they have more power and control at the local level. So they've been funneling millions and millions of dollars into these district attorney races. One of those district attorney races is this guy named this LA DA, Los Angeles DA, George Gascon. Now, we brought you a story last week of 2 officers in El Monte, California that got killed in the line of duty responding to a domestic violence call. That's terrible. It's the worst thing that you can imagine. And unfortunately resulted in the death of 2 law enforcement officers. Now, the fallout from that was that in Los Angeles County, after this guy took power, he changed all of the prosecution and all of the ways that the DA's office was prosecuting criminals. The guy who killed the El Monte police officers was out on 2 years probation for a felony gun charge. Before Gascon, a bunch of legal experts say that would have carried a year to 2 years in prison, and essentially saying that this guy would have been in jail when that happened, when the shooting happened. That's just the story that we brought last week. Now, LA District Attorney George Gascon, the woke George Soros funded district attorney, doubled down on his decision to release a future cop killer. So didn't apologize, didn't back down, and now doubled down on releasing that guy. LA District Attorney George Gascon says the outcome of the cop killer Justin Flores gun case was appropriate and that possession of a gun is not a violent crime. And since it was not a violent crime, he was released on parole or on probation earlier than he would have been just a year prior. This is Bill Mallusion tweeting. Matt Finn asked George Gascon if he has a message for parents of the dead cops, and he abruptly walked out. This is the end of, this is really, really quick clip. This is the end of a press conference that George Gascon gave when he was doubling down on his decision to release a future cop killer. This is how he exited the room. Watch this. If you're listening, you'll just see him very abruptly end his answer or statement in Spanish and then leave while questions are being hurled at him.
Saber, y las personas que tienen acceso y necesitan acceso lo tienen. Muchas gracias.
Mr. Gascon, do you have anything to say to the mother of Monte Police Officer Joseph Santana, who's blaming your policies for her son's death?
And that is that. Just leaves the room and doesn't say anything. This is again from Bill Malusian. Gascon also claimed there was no evidence of a history of violence with Flores. He claimed Flores didn't have contact with the criminal justice system after his 2011 strike. But his rap sheet shows numerous misdemeanor convictions in 2013, 2018, 2019, and 2020. Essentially, this guy seemed to be, I don't know about a career criminal, but a repeat offender that George Gascon thought it was okay to release into the public. And lo and behold, horrifyingly ends up killing 2 El Monte police officers. Then he goes back and defends his position. Gascon said, "We've been down the road of being scared and reacting harshly. Harsh incarcerations and punishments never made us safer." Whoa. And many would say that we are here because of past mistakes. I understand how difficult it is, but we urge all to ensure we don't overreact. Cool. Dang, I don't even know where to go from that. Do with that comment what you will. That is the LA District Attorney saying that, no, he's defending the idea of releasing a future cop killer early and not backing down at all, and also not taking questions. Just FYI, if you live in Los Angeles County or you know anybody that lives in Los Angeles County, tell them to sign the recall petition. I believe it's July 14th. They've got about 3 weeks left, to get a petition to get the recall of this woke, crazy person on the ballot in November. Let me see. Lastly, I want to get to this. Here's Joe Biden saying another thing that he shouldn't have said. Wow, geez. Lots of people in the comment section. What a lowlife. BS. Can't bring that on the screen. More words to describe George Gascon. Yeah, I can't bring all that up. You know what? I want to talk about this. This is actually kind of interesting. Jeff says crime rate will go up when the government takes your guns, like in Chicago. Correct. Chicago has one of the strictest gun laws overall, and is very, very dangerous. Now, one of the interesting things here, too, an argument to be made, or something that isn't being talked about enough, a bunch of the left wants more gun control laws. That's no secret. They're out proud about it. They want red flag laws. They want possession. There's a lot of different things that they want. Having said that, in so many cases across the country, but specifically in Los Angeles, California, they're not enforcing the laws that they do have. So I'm not entirely sure why laws would work. In the case of this El Monte shooting in California, George Gascon let a guy out for criminal possession of a firearm, being the felon that he was. He let him out on probation. Didn't prosecute for what could have been a 2 to 3 year sentence. Instead, just let him out. So I'm curious, if we want more gun control laws, why aren't we enforcing the ones that we already have? Just a question and thought that I have. And also, just so you know, I don't want that. I'm just saying, I'm trying to rationalize the thought that's coming from the left side of the aisle. Here's a clip of Joe Biden saying things that he shouldn't have said. If you haven't already, would appreciate you clicking the little like button, click the little share button. It really helps us out, get to more people. Appreciate you doing so. Check this out from the president, saying words the president should not have said. Watch this.
Is there, and how many of the nation's kids will you be able to get vaccinated before you need more money from Congress?
Well, we'll get through at least this year. We do need more money, but we don't just need more money for vaccines for children eventually. We need more money to plan for the second pandemic. There's going to be another pandemic. We have to think ahead. And that's not something the last outfit did very well. That's something we've been doing fairly well. That's why we need the money.
All right, so a bunch of people that I like and agree with are going to say, "Hey, they're planning another pandemic." I understand that. That's funny, I guess. Maybe it's serious. I don't know what you. Feel free to believe whatever you believe. But what I think is interesting here is that Joe Biden again is petitioning Congress for more money. So what we have is Joe Biden, while running, was saying inflation is going to be a problem. Then as soon as he gets into office, they pass the quote-unquote American Rescue Plan, which spends a ton more money. Then Joe Biden said, we're getting more money in people's pockets, and that's a good thing. We need to do more. So then he tries to ram through the $3.5 trillion Build Back Better plan. That fails. And then, so he tries to spend as much money as humanly possible, and then is bragging about the quote-unquote deficit that we have. After just having tried to spend $3.5 trillion, he's now bragging about the money we're not spending. A week later, he's looking for more money from Congress to spend after having just said, look at me, we haven't spent any money. Tell me how that makes sense. I wouldn't be able to justify that or rationalize that in my own head. Another pandemic. What the heck, says Raina. Let me see. Anything else in the comment section that's interesting? Probably not. Next pandemic intentionally, says Carol. Yeah, maybe. Who knows? WTF, says Christy. Yeah, that is what it is. I'm not of the belief that the military or the government is planning another pandemic, but that was not a great thing for the president to say. And it's interesting that he's trying to spend more money, having just been bragging about the money that we're not spending. That's going to do it for us today. Appreciate you tuning in. Also appreciate the Turning Point people for letting me, the coworkers that I have letting me use this studio. Appreciate it very much. We will be back here same time, same place, back in the dingy bunker. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media accounts. Just type in JOBOB pretty much anywhere. You'll be able to find me. Let's see. Anything else? That's going to do it for us today. We will see you tomorrow. Oh, you know what? I got a bunch of comments in here while we were on, and I got a bunch of people on Twitter saying the same thing. Talk about the Navy video. We will. I promise you we will talk about that tomorrow. If you don't know what we're talking about when we say talk about the Navy video, you'll see what it is tomorrow. It's so delicious and good and horrifying and horrible. But we will definitely get to that tomorrow. So those of you in the comment section who are pleading, please talk about the Navy video, we will get there. And if you don't know what it is, that means you should tune in tomorrow. Same time, different place. Yeah. We'll see you tomorrow. All the news of the day right back at you. Again, thanks, Turning Point. Yeah, see you tomorrow. God bless America.